find yourself a booth, order up a cold one. This is the Spring Bar. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Spring Bar. I'm your host, Casey, joined by my co-host, Joe. Mike is MIA for this particular recording, but we also have a special guest, Cold War Patriot, aka my father. How you guys doing?
Mr. KC, Mr. KC, who we will call
Mr.
JT for the duration.
Nice to meet you, and nice to see you, son.
So we'll kick this off real quick before we dive into our general banter and NWAs. So, Mr. Casey's dad, Cold War Patriot, would you mind telling us a little bit about who you are? You're, a very well decorated, distinguished military veteran. So it was a quick rundown of your military career.
Yeah, so a real brief: 30 years active duty. 7 combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. Assignments in airborne units overseas in Germany. I'm really fortunate to have a fabulous military career. Unfortunately, they don't let you do it forever. So there came a point when I had to retire. I retired to the rank of colonel, and now I am a government employee, actually working for the Army, and I am soon to take over the Army's hypersonic missile program.
So that's the rundown for the military. Can you tell us a little bit about what got you into watches? Why do you even care about watches, and what's your favorite watch?
The interest in watches starts really from a functional perspective, right? And that nothing occurs in the military without a time hack, without something is identified on when you're going to actually begin whatever the mission is, right? It all comes down to your timing, right? And watches are really the only thing, particularly in the Army. I think this is true for the Marine Corps as well, but they're the only option for a soldier to have sort of something that expresses their own sense of identity. Because you really can't, in uniform is not a fashion statement, right? The watch is literally the only thing where you get to express who you are while you're on the job and in uniform. And so my interest in that started out, and with what options are out there? And when I first came on active duty in the Army, watches were the state of technology with watches wasn't particularly impressive. And about the time when I first came on active duty, those rugged Iron Man type digital watches became available, and they just resonated. Yeah, that one right there, and it's probably its earlier predecessor. These watches clicked with their utility, their functions, because in the military, not only do you need to tell time, but you need to measure time, so that for things like PT tests, you need to be able to synchronize time so that units that are in coordination can begin their operations at the same time. And so my interest in watches grew from the utility perspective of that. And as that technology started to expand, the options became, there were more options that were available for a soldier to be able to tell and measure time. And it really wasn't until my very first tour in Iraq when I met someone who actually used an Omega. He had an Omega Planet Ocean that he used in the combat zone. I was like, and it was a striking watch. And I was like, what is that? Tell me about it. And that led to, my exposure to the Omega Speedmasters, which I immediately fell in love with, and kind of the rest is history, really. Can I share a sort of a brief war story, right? So my first duty assignment, I was a young second lieutenant, like I is now. I met my battalion commander, and he first thing out of his mouth were, I've only got 2 rules. The first is, when I call you on the radio, you better answer. The second rule is never miss an SP time. And SP is your start point, right? That's the time hack when you begin a mission. And I was like, I wrote that stuff down. I'm like, okay, well, that's important to him, so it's important to me. And we were on a mission training exercise, and platoon leader in front of me had his SP time that was before mine, and he was leaving the motor pool where our Bradleys were, and he didn't make his SP time. And I'm getting a little frantic because it's a bottleneck. I can't get out past him. I'm about to blow my SP time as well. And I went to go talk to him about it and say, hey, you need to get going because I don't want to get my butt chewed by the battalion commander for missing my SP time. And he blew me off. 30 seconds later, here comes the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel, comes running up to him, climbs on top of that guy's Bradley, and grabs that lieutenant by the collar and says, hey, Lieutenant, you're relieved. Get out of that Bradley. Get out of my battalion. You don't work here anymore, because he blew his SP time. And he did.
You guys, the audience now has probably figured out we're going to speak to a pretty military heavy episode today. So before we get into what is exactly on tap, JT, Cold War Patriot, what do you have on wrist and what's in the glass?
Okay, so I have on my wrist my beloved Omega Speedmaster, hands down my favorite watch of my entire collection. And in my glass, I have Paulana Hefeweizen in a Paulana Hefeweizen glass. So,
Okay, hang on. Go back to the Speedmaster. Do you have all of the digits? Which one is it? Be specific, because there are people that are going to nail you if you're wrong.
Of course, yeah. So this Speedmaster happens to be the 311.30.40.30.01.005 reference.
There it is. Well done, sir. Well done.
Oh shit. Are you actually serious? Because I don't even know what the reference number for my Speedmaster is.
No, that's absolutely the reference number. It is absolutely. Yep.
All right. Hell yeah.
I love that. I love that. There you go.
I can tell you the reference number of every watch I own.
You have passed the bona fides. You're
And
in.
see, that right there is why I think he would get along well with Mike.
Oh yeah. You got that down to the max
I
ass.
kind of hate that reference number because it's the longest reference number of any watch I own.
No, we're making it up as we go along. It's fantastic. Everybody wins.
Well, since we're on you, what do you got on the wrist and what's in the glass?
Well, on the wrist today is the Snorkel C super compressor EPSA case with the dual crowns and the internal rotating bezel. This is in the 36 millimeter rather than the 42 millimeter. And man, I was talking with somebody online today. This is this is definitely the best tool watch I own. I mean, we're talking about military watches. We're talking about military provenance. And this, I've had A11s, I've had A17s, I've got an A15 reissue. And so these are all military designations. This watch is more legible than all of those. And it's striking, it's stunning.
I've looked at those and you're not picking up one for under $1,000.
Well, that depends.
Unless you're you.
Thank you, sir. I think that after, like, I got this one, and then I did a service, and I still think I'm under $1,000.
Ooh, nice.
I think I am. And in the glass today, I will be enjoying a Letitia sparkling wine, the Cuvée M. Oh
shit! Oh, okay.
All over my desk.
Nice.
Thank you. So, sir, KC, your turn.
I guess in honor of the tool watch theme, I wore my Breitling Aerospace today. I will make this my field watch if it had a backlight, which unfortunately it doesn't. This is just such a sick watch. I love this thing a lot. And then in the glass, I have some weird Aldi sourced Brecken Hefeweizen, which is terrible. Really
terrible.
But it's in the I forgot which World Cup this is now. Probably like 2013 World Cup glass.
Anything new?
Oh yes, good call. Almost blew past that.
I'm here to keep you real.
So I picked up this Caravel Tell Time.
Yes.
Which is a cool watch that helped children essentially just learn the concept of how many minutes to and how many minutes after. And it came with the original record.
Hang on. Flip that, right? Wasn't it you buy the record, you got the watch for free? Isn't that the gimmick?
I think it's buy the watch, get the record.
Okay, making sure.
Yeah,
It is Caravel, so it could be the other way around. It's hard to say.
So I'm actually going to take this over to my in-laws who have a 45 record player and get them to transfer it over to digital.
That is so cool, dude. That is so cool.
Way,
like, you know, Mike he's got that wall clock, and he got one of those for his daughter.
Yeah.
A couple years ago. So like I like that. I like that one a lot. And
to be able to be on par with your EPSA case, I have an EPSA case as well now.
Do you really?
This is the Baylor. This is that.
Oh yeah.
I guess Baylor was a subsidiary of Hoyer, so it's got a Hoyer movement in it. And I got this for a steal.
You did.
The only other one I see online is going for like $1,700. And because whoever the goober was that sold it to me had it listed with the case back as the primary photo.
Of course.
So everyone just blew past it. But I was like, oh, what is that?
But it's a cool case back too, right? What is it? Is that like the Alvin that's on the back?
I don't know. It's some little submarine.
Yeah. I think it's almost like the Alvin submersible, which was one of the first super deep diving science subs. And
then I think you and I both have, well, actually all the co-hosts of the show have the Accutrons in from Citizen Watch Group to kind of tool around with.
We do. We've got that coming in. So I've got a slightly different colorway of mine. Mine's got the blue dial. This is the DNA version rather than the Space View version. Mike's got two of the Space Views. We're going to be doing this at a later date. It'll be a full-on review. We'll be talking all things Accutron, talking about this electrostatic movement. And the other thing that I picked up, so I got this.
What the hell is that?
This is an Accutron quartz 666 with, it's kind of got a porthole bezel. I don't know what the heck this sucker is. Nobody knows what this sucker is. It's from 1980. I haven't cracked the back. I've got a little button here on the side of, at 3 o'clock, which is supposed to help. I think it's hacks the second hand. I don't know. Nobody knows anything about these. Nobody's ever seen one before.
Huh.
Got to catch them all, right?
So you get to make up your own reference number then.
I do. This is going to be a WTF
0669 69 666.
Yes, very much so. JT,
so saving the best for last. What do we got?
All right, so my latest acquisition is the Jupiter Moon Swatch. Is that what you expected, KC?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So this is number 2 of my gotta catch them all Omega Moon Swatch goal, because I have the Saturn.
So you sent that one to Mike, right?
I did. Yep.
Okay. So what was your process for getting the Jupiter? Like you showed up and it was there, or did you have to keep going back?
No, he had to go underneath the desk of the AD, and
Well, I know that's how you got your Rolex.
That is how I got my Rolex. Yes.
Yeah, look, how Casey gets watches is none of my business. That's absolutely not how I acquire one. But yeah, that's I'm enthralled with. I think Omega and Swatch did something really, really good here with these watches. I respect them. They're not exactly throwaway watches, because you're not getting them for throwaway prices, but these are not on the same par as an Omega Speedmaster for sure. But I deeply respect the passion that was ignited in amateur horologists or watch lovers by this collaboration. So my objective is I'm going to try and get them all eventually. We'll see how that works out.
Well, cool. Respect. So that's our new watches and all that stuff wrapped up. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes here. What's on tap?
What's on tap is military watches, Provence, where they come from, how you get them, what you do with them, and the why, or close to it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So I think we'll kick things off, because I have never been issued a watch. I don't know if you have.
Personally, no.
Well, I meant my dad.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been issued a watch.
Well, son of a man. I got gypped. I've never been issued a watch.
Well, I mean, it's a little different now, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is that the watches are issued to soldiers back as we go a little farther back in American military history. A lot of soldiers didn't have the money or the need to have a watch. So in order to make sure that soldiers participated in things in a timely manner, they had to get a watch from somewhere. So the Army bought, I mean, you've seen it. If you look at the A11 watches, they'll have, these are watches that were manufactured under a government military contract. The reason that was done was because soldiers didn't necessarily have a watch. And if we wanted them to be able to keep track of time, we had to give them one. And I mean, that changed over time. As a company commander in the early 90s, when I signed for all my company property, included in that was 250 military produced national stock number watches.
Which I believe this is one of them.
That's one of them. Now, what's really kind of funny to me is that, these watches were purchased for the lowest price possible under a government contract. They weren't
always
intended. Yeah, right. And now you can't get one for less than $1,000. And they were mass produced of the cheapest materials possible. And that watch that KC has I think is made almost entirely out of plastic.
It is, and it's cracked.
And it's cracked. So is that a Timex? What is it?
That's classified.
Yeah.
Excellent.
No, so there's really no markings. There's no markings on the dial.
It's sterile?
Yeah, it says US. Oh, I'm sorry. It says guide. That might be something.
Oh, that's
guide.
God, that's awesome though.
But it's produced by one of our greatest allies, China.
Oh God.
Always.
Is it really? All right.
Yeah.
Is it real?
So that predates the not the Buy America Act. There's an act I'm coming up short of. There's an act for the purchase of military materiel that prohibits the purchase from beyond our, from countries beyond our shores. So that predates that act.
It's always so fascinating because you look at the way that, particularly as we start talking about globalization and international trade and all the rest of it, that the Buy American Act and the problems that the U.S. military has had making those kind of purchases, it becomes a problem, and it's going to become a larger global problem as we keep going. Because we've had discussions too, as we're talking about like the American watch industry, the Veterans Watch Initiative, and some of the things that they're doing, some of the companies that are doing the work and that are doing this production. And the made in the USA marking is so difficult to manage because it has to be 100% done in the United States, whereas Swiss, it's like, oh, if the idea is Swiss, it counts. I'm not even sure what made in China even constitutes at this point. So who knows?
Yeah. So you brought up that Bulova program on teaching veterans how to work on watches. Mad props to Bulova for that. What a class act, right?
It's an amazing program, man. Like we keep trying to get KC to get up there to do a tour, and that's everything about that. Everything about that program just seems to be great.
But with respect to the watches that that we issue to soldiers, right? I'm going through my inventory. My supply sergeant said, "Hey, sir, we just got to go through the items that are in the safe," and we kept the things in the safe. Like we had individual soldier radiac meters, right, which was a watch that was a little like a Geiger counter.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Right, and it just measured cumulative radiation exposure, so it wasn't a Geiger counter per se. They were in there along with these watches, and I'm sitting there going, I never encountered, the fact that we had watches. I'm like, well, why don't we issue them out to the soldiers? Like, well, if we issue them out, we'll never see them again, right? And so I kept them in the safe and actually never gave them out to the soldiers, which frankly I kind of deeply regret a little bit.
Well, so let's talk about that process, because it's something it's been curious to me. I'm not a military guy. I don't have a big military background. I work in public education, which means I understand a little bit about procurement. I also understand a little bit about the fact that, okay, I'm going to order something and it's going to sit in the warehouse for 6 months before I actually get it. And then when I get it, it's still going to be wrong. So
the other tie that you have to us, coincidentally, is you also work in a profession where you're in imminent danger.
Well, this is.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. It depends on the school, right?
That's why I drink. So in discussing about the procurement, I'm not assuming that they have a watch catalog that you go through where you're just flipping through pages of watches like, oh, I want this one. I want this one. What are the features? Oh, what are the colors? So I know that there's spec, and the watches all need to meet spec, and you've got different manufacturers that meet the spec in slightly different ways, but the watches are all still relatively standard. So when it comes to Casey was telling us, like, you had watches that you issued. How did you go about doing that? What was the process for that? How did you get that through rather than just dealing with what you were given?
Yeah, so it's, just like with everything in the military, it's not quite as easy as it should be, right? So there's a couple of ways. One, there are documents that exist that are called the Table of Organizational Equipment, and these documents are published, and they say that for this type of unit, you are authorized this type of equipment. And it depends. Like, for example, if you're a tank company commander, you don't get issued Apache helicopters, you get issued tanks. It makes sense, right? And you get issued the equipment that's necessary to maintain those tanks, etc. So that's your table of organizational equipment. It specifies for this type of unit, this is the equipment that you must have on hand to be able to do your mission. And it is reported on a monthly basis. If you do not have that equipment or it is non-mission capable, it is reported on a monthly basis in a report called the unit status report, which is a big deal, right? And then in addition to that, there is a separate group of authorization documents, equipment authorization documents, called the Common Tables of Allowance. And what it says is for this type of unit, you are also authorized, if you want to use unit funds to get it, whatever these list of items. So for example, if you want a unit mascot, a dog has a NATO stock number, and you can order a dog from the Common Tables of Allowance and have it delivered to you.
It's an interesting question, right? Because when you're looking at what's available, what's allowed, because we're not talking about unit watches, which is a totally separate issue, right? The unit's going to order, and Tudor is really big on that. You've got Omegas that can get ordered as well, and you have it put on the dial, and all the things go with that. But we're talking about functional, everyday, knock around watches
that are on a bona fide government contract for the purposes of the general use, military use of being able to measure time.
And now all of this is completely different, though, than say the PX watch, yes, which is what you can get on base, you can get from wherever, and that should meet the similar spec, correct?
No,
is it totally different?
No, that's no, absolutely not. Here's the fundamental difference: on the back of the watch, if it has a NATO stock number, that means it is an approved piece of equipment for military use, specifically within NATO alliance members, right?
So in an attempt to complicate the question and the answer here, so you can go into the PX and you can purchase these watches. The answer to whether or not you can use it generally would lie within AR67-1, which governs what you can wear in uniform. And AR67-1 is fairly vague as to what the watch should look like. It should be relatively unassuming and non-faddish, and then you're good to go. Like, you could show up with, like, if I was your company commander and I saw you wearing this, I'd say you're good to go.
Right.
Hang on. Anecdotally, wasn't there an issue with that specific watch recently?
Well, yes. So my youngest brother is in the Marine Corps, and I guess the stick is a little farther up there So they didn't really jive with it.
Which is why the watch thing, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's literally the only opportunity for a service member to have any sense of personal expression, right? So you'll see, that I mean, watch sales at AFES on pace is a thriving business because soldiers get to express themselves via the watch that they choose to purchase and wear on their wrist while they're in uniform.
I remember distinctly being in the bays during basic training. We're getting very close to graduation, and the dude in the bunk next to me was so excited because the thing was like family day, so we were able to finally go out and go to the PX and buy whatever we wanted. He comes back beaming, and he's got this massive G-Shock Mudmaster, and he's like, "Man, this guy has such a great deal on this. This is so cool. I love this watch." And at the time, I didn't appreciate it. But he was so proud to be able to acquire this and wear it in uniform. Like that meant the world to him.
So the watch thing and the individual expression that goes with that. But the problem I have with that concept is that the watch still has to be completely functional, and it has to meet, not just has to meet spec, but it also has to be usable. So I'm assuming, you're not seeing massive multifunction pieces. You're not seeing all of these other bells and whistles because the watch still needs to work. You've got to be able to do it. It has to be mission appropriate. So
yeah, but soldiers aren't stupid, right? Despite the common joke about the dumb grunt, soldiers want to be successful in their jobs. They want to be successful on mission. So 99 times out of 100, they're going to buy that watch that meets all of their mission needs. So, which is why the Timex Ironman, when we're talking about G-Shocks, I didn't have a G-Shock when I first joined the Army because I couldn't afford it, but I could afford that Timex Ironman.
What was the difference in price? Because like the G-Shock currently, G-Shocks are typically under $100. Well, so Casey gave me one. I did him a favor. He sent me the watch that he would recommend to his soldiers. DW,
which he's never done for me, by the way. I never have G-Shock.
No, but the watch itself, it's phenomenal. It is it's a phenomenal timepiece. It's different. It's different than the one that I bought for our group because I bought a different G-Shock, but still was still under $100. So like G-Shocks as an entry level timepiece, they're not. You can go that Mudmaster route. You can go the Glass Frog, and you can go the Mr. G, and like you can spend a couple $100 on a G-Shock without question. And it's an excellent watch and it'll do the job, but you can also spend $50 on a G-Shock and it'll do the exact same job. It's the same spec. So
yeah, but back then, right? So a Timex Ironman watch, you could get on sale at AFES for $15.
There it is.
Right. And for the features that this had for these iron, I mean, it was, as a jump master, it was my go-to watch. Out in the field, it was indestructible. The only thing that I had to do to my Timex to make it fully was put a little bit of red rubylith film on it so that I could look at it at night, so when you hit the backlight, it didn't light up white, it lit up red instead. That was
interesting.
The only one. So, those Timex watches, everybody had them because they were indestructible and they did everything a soldier needed to do, particularly in units like airborne units that I tended to gravitate to.
So I mean, to kind of like speak to, I don't know, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
no, I was just saying, and they were inexpensive, right?
Yeah. Well, I think not to like throw shade about the time we're talking about here, but G-Shock was relatively new, right? So that was like cutting edge technology. So you would have had to pay a premium for that.
I get that. I get that from the difference in era between you and your father. That makes sense. But even still, I mean, the G-Shock watch.
That's my go-to. I recommend that to all my soldiers. But to speak to like complications, and I guess more so just generally as for my soldiers, I don't really give a hoot what they wear. But similar to like the lieutenant from my father's story who got relieved for blowing an SP time, I'm trusting you with autonomy to go out and acquire your watch. It's on you to use it, and if you don't use it, we'll hold you accountable.
Okay, so let me ask this question, and this is a specific question because you two are both experienced in the field. KC, you're working currently. JT, you are previously working. When it comes to quartz watches and the ability to hack, how common was that? How often was that? Was that something that you needed to do on a regular basis?
So downrange, Iraq and Afghanistan, before we left the wire, it wasn't. We didn't. It's the World War II movie. Let's synchronize watches, right? We just said, hey, let's make sure that we're all on a common time reference. Before we left the wire, we did that because it mattered, right? If we had a staggered convoy and we need to hit specific checkpoints or staggered SP release time, you needed to make sure that everyone had the same time hack to ensure that nothing went wrong.
So the question I have, because the experience I have with the quartz watch, setting the time, it's not a simple crown pull. And when you talk about like the military hack watch, Bulova has the hack watch. Casey, you've got that BMI issue one. I've had a bunch. It's your standard mechanical watch, and you pull the crown out, second hand stops, you can set the time, you push it back in, second hand goes. When it comes to quartz, there's a lot more buttons to push.
There's a difference in the use between the reason watches, and I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but the reason we had watches that were hackable back in the day is because there was a lot of variability on how that watch would measure time, right? Depending on the brand.
Okay, right.
With a digital watch,
because we're talking like plus 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, right. So, for a digital watch, if you're on the same minute,
yeah. Yeah, you're generally good. But I mean, I think so. I mean, some of these models for you the hack function is there's a separate button, and I'm going to again put the onus upon the individual soldier to understand how to use their equipment. But if you press it at the right time, it'll zero out your seconds. So that's essentially your hack. Oh
no, I get that, and I know that there's a way to do it. It's just looking at it from if you're looking from like the G-Shock perspective, you've got the 4 different buttons you're pushing. You got to make sure you get in the right sequence. It's got to be the right, and if you screw that up,
I'm sorry. I'm forgive me for interrupting. I'm really bad about that. But the criticality of it with the digital watch is not the same, is what I'm suggesting.
I'm completely open to learn because my whole use of watches professionally, personally, has got very little mission critical. I teach high school music. We are not mission critical. There's a bell, it rings, and then you go. But and like maybe you need to put away your chairs beforehand, and I've got a pretty wide window to make that work. So for me, I understand that, and like my issue is not nowhere close to that.
Let's talk about the first watch that my father picked up for his military service, and then kind of the piece that he left service with. Kind of works through that.
Oh, that's a great way to go about this. Fantastic. Yes, let's do that. That's great.
This wasn't the first one, right?
Well, it wasn't that particular one wasn't the first one, but the first one I had was that Timex Ironman digital watch.
So same model, just not this exact one.
I can't attest that it was the exact same model. I just know
this is the first gen. Like this is the starting point of the Ironman inflow.
I know I've had several. So yes, it was. That was the only watch I would buy because it was the only watch that would do everything I needed.
Okay, yeah. So my father started off with the Timex Ironman, which will show up if you're watching a video. But then at some point he acquired this Citizen Eco Drive, and I don't know what the model name is, but it's a particular one that's a monoblock. We have a fan of the show that like knows these things by heart. I can't really tell you the reference number. Oh, geez. It's a lengthy reference number, so
I think
Omega S, but
I can tell you the reference number of that watch.
Perfect.
So the reference number of that Echo Drive is Bravo Mike 7450-81 Lima.
JT, you are my new favorite person ever Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I keep track of all that stuff.
God, that's so good, man.
I didn't know anything about. So later on, with my passion for watches started to increase, I believed that I could buy one watch to rule them all. A watch that would do everything I needed. And it led me to that watch because it's solar powered, and it was a dive watch because I was interested in diving. Although when I got that watch, I hadn't done that yet. And I purchased that watch off of eBay and had them sent it to me for my deployment in Baghdad, Iraq.
No way.
I did. That particular Citizen EcoDrive watch, I got it via military mail at an Army post office after buying it and I wore that watch for 2 tours in Iraq and 1 tour in Afghanistan. Right. The key feature for that watch, what sold it to me literally was I never needed to replace the battery, because I didn't, at the time, I didn't fully understand or have faith in automatic watches, right? Mechanical automatic watches. And at the time, because I didn't know any better, I'm like manual wind, which is ironic because this is a manual.
There it is, right?
Right. I didn't want any of that. I wanted a zombie apocalypse watch, and that met my military needs, and that was that watch.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think that the EcoDrive, the solar powered watch, the fact that there are not more companies that are using that technology boggles my mind. The EcoDrive it's so good. It is so good. It's almost foolproof. The only issue I have with that is in the event that something goes wrong, it's hard to repair.
And that watch, you can't do anything about it. And as Casey shared with you, I've owned that particular watch twice. That actual watch twice.
Okay, so is this the story? Is this the story of that watch got sold and it was repurchased for a similar, and that specific is that this story?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell this story, because Casey's already told the story. Let's hear it from you. I love this story.
So I was trying to finance my watch interest, and I'm like, what? This watch doesn't get any. I bought it for combat. I'm not going to combat anymore. I don't need anyone. So I sold the watch to someone that I'm now connected with on Instagram, to another watch
and a fan of the show.
And a fan of the show. And he was really happy to get the watch. Interestingly, he's like, his interests are very military oriented. He's like, hey, because I sold it on eBay. I said, hey, I actually use this watch in combat. I actually use it. He's like, do you have any pictures of you in a combat zone wearing that watch? I'm like, as a matter of fact, I do. Right. And so
I do.
Yeah, he purchased that watch, right? And then, Casey and I were coming back from somewhere, and I was like, yeah, I really regret selling that watch. I wish I had given it to you, because his watch interests had really taken off. And I'm like, yeah. So I reached out to that gentleman and said, hey, look, would you sell me the watch back? My son's in the military now. I'd love to have it back. And he's like, hey, bud, I like this watch. You're not getting it back. And he's like, I've looked for this watch. It's got a particular serial number on it that I really wanted. So he's like, well, I said, tell you what, if I can find you another watch that is in comparable condition, would you be interested in trading it? And I actually found a new old stock version of that.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that part of the story. That's awesome.
It was pristine. It was immaculate.
That's
purchased
great.
That watch. And sent it on faith, sent it to him. And I told him, I said, hey, look, if this replacement watch isn't what you want, no problem. Send it back. Send the one, just send it back. It's okay. I understand. If you really don't want, and he was a stand-up guy about it. He said, you know what? It's not quite the same watch because it had a different serial number. It wasn't quite, because apparently the watch that Casey has now was actually military issued, not US. And he said, but because of the provenance and because you're doing this for your son, I'll send that back to you. And he sent that watch back. And of course, I gave it to KC for Christmas, and so totally thrilled. Really, really pleased with the interaction with that what I had with that gentleman.
The story itself, the story that goes with that watch now. He goes to a watch meetup. He talks to anybody that's interested in watches. Like, oh yeah, let me tell you about this. Let me tell you the story about this. I bought this, but then he asked me for, and then he gave me the, and now I have.
Yeah.
Like, he's drinking on that story 3 times a month, no questions asked. And everybody who hears that is like, this is
as it should be.
As it should be. I agree with you 100%, man. And Casey told us. He told us about that story. He told us about getting that watch back. And it's like, I didn't quite tear up, but I was really close. It's a fantastic story. It's a lovely story.
That's the great thing about watches is that, it's an object, right? You can discount the complexity of the engineering that goes into it. You can discount the elegance of the watch, but you can't discount what that watch, how it makes you feel, right? The joy that it brings when you put it on your wrist and you go, I just love this object, right? You can't discount that. And that's the best part of this watch hobby for me.
Right. And I think, specifically, so within my own family, the middle brother, he doesn't really get it. And he's like, oh, you got Rolex, it's some sort of like status thing. And yeah, it's for some, it's a status thing. But at the end of the day, what I'm more proud, this would be great to pass down to a kid.
Sure.
But the Casio G-Shock I used during my service, that's what I'm most proud of. And let me ask you this, because let's talk about the Vario. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the Vario, because your siblings have one. Does your dad have one?
Yes.
Right. There it is. So everybody in your family has that Vario.
Yep.
To me, and I'm not related to you at all. To me, though, that watch, that's the link. And it's not to discount that Casio. It's not to discount any of the other pieces that you have. But the ability of that watch to bring your whole family together, that's the one.
Oh yeah, no, Vario did a super cool job, and the fact that they were so accommodating when I was like, "Hey, special request, can I get this engraving on the back?" And I was not a simple customer to please, because I was very specific about what it had to be on the back, and they did it, and I think they did a really good job. To move this along the watch timeline for my father, though, what I don't know is you have a titanium piece.
Okay.
And I don't know where that fits within the watch timeline in your career.
Yeah, so I actually purchased this when I was in Afghanistan, but not as a military combat watch. So this is the Oceanus Cash Lot, and this was the one watch to rule them all. So it's solar atomic. It's got the 6 time zones. It's titanium, the sapphire crystal. It's a dive watch, because foolishly, I believed there was literally one watch that would do everything you ever needed with respect to measuring time. So that it led me to this watch. And this.
Now, were you in 06 at the time for that, or?
Yes, but this was supposed to be my zombie apocalypse watch, the watch to end all watches, and it is an incredible watch, but it is very complicated.
How big is that? What's the dial size?
So
it looks huge.
It's large. It is
42. It's got to be 42.
It is 46 and a half.
Oh shit.
Well, part of that though is all the extra buttons, right? So the bezel diameter is a little less, right? This case is hard to measure because it's an asymmetric case. It's not a perfectly round case. So that's
titanium as well, right? That's what you said?
It is titanium, yeah.
What grade? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know that. I have no idea.
Okay, how many scratches does it have on it?
Not a lot.
Huh? It might be grade 5 then.
Yeah,
okay.
And who owns Oceanus? Is that is that Citizen that owns?
No, that's Invicta. No,
No.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. But I mean,
Oceanus. Let's see.
Oceanus. It's I think it's Citizen Group that owns it. But utterly incredible watch.
Oh.
It's really,
It's a Casio product?
it's Casio.
No way.
Yes, it's Casio.
Holy crap.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Wow.
But yeah, it automatically sets itself to the right time zone worldwide. So
Yeah.
And
And,
then-
so this was kind of the watch at the end of your career, right? Or did you buy the Speedmaster while you were still in uniform?
no, so this watch was the watch to end my career. The Speedmaster was the watch I purchased in celebration of successfully retiring after 30 years on active duty.
So that's your new career watch.
Yeah. It was the watch I really, once I started to learn about watches, this was the watch that I said, this would be my grail watch, the watch that validated the work I put in my career, right?
I don't think you can go wrong with that. I really don't. I gotta say, like when you're talking about watches, when you're talking about horology, all roads kind of lead to the Speedmaster. And it's right up there. Like they talk about car enthusiasts, like you're not a car enthusiast unless you haven't owned an Alfa Romeo.
Right.
You're not a watch enthusiast unless you own a Speedmaster.
Yeah,
I disagree with that to a certain level because I'm a bull of a guy, but I get it.
Hey, look. Speedmaster literally has something for everyone.
I know. I am not.
This is a bull of a Speedmaster.
It is, and I don't disagree with either of you. I think you guys both got it nailed down. I love the fact, though. I love the fact that you look at the end of your military service and your immediate watch to put all of that together is the NASA watch, and it is without question in terms of provenance of a horologist or a horology fan. Like you went right to the pinnacle. You can't beat that. And you can show up anywhere with that watch, and anybody who looks is like, "Yep, you're a watch guy," and you're done.
Yeah, that actually happened. I'm attending the National War College, a fellowship equivalent of the National War College, and I just happened to be in a conference call with another professional, and he just chimed in over the chat. He's like, "Is that a Omega Speedmaster you're wearing?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah." As a matter of fact, he's like, "Oh God, I've always wanted one." Right. And
Yep. Exactly. What are the things that you specifically, you individually, not in general, you specifically look for in a timepiece? Give me a top 3, top 5.
Oh, easy. It's got to have Omega on it.
This is not you yet.
you're
Casey.
talking about from a military perspective?
Well, no, from a personal perspective.
There's only one thing that I look for at this point with respect to a timepiece, and it's how it makes me feel. Right. I mean, when I put that watch on, and what is it? What does it say about me? How does it engage? So, for example, we're relocating to Huntsville, Alabama, Rocket City, USA, and at the museum there, they've got a 30-foot Omega Speedmaster that they hang right next to the Saturn V rocket they have on display. And when I put this particular watch on, what I'm looking for is, okay, how does it make me feel, and what does it say about me to those who may notice it? That's sort of my criteria at this point. I tell you one other thing that's sort of interesting is that in my profession, you can't have a digital watch. You can't have a smartwatch because we work in classified environments. You're not allowed to have those types of documents.
Yes.
So, so the other part of it is, hey, is this something that I can actually use on my job, on a day-to-day basis or not? Because we're very restricted on the types of electronic devices we can use in the workplace.
So let's let's see if we can sort of close out this little bit of the segment, because Casey, you have an array of watches. What do you, and these are mostly your military pieces, right?
Yeah, so this is my military collection, and I normally don't wear these regularly. You won't find them on my feed often. I'll only wear these in uniform, which in my case is 1 weekend a month and 2 in the summer if I'm lucky.
Good job there, LT.
Yeah. Well, let's just hope the public doesn't need me. So we got a Marine Nationale issued G-Shock dive watch.
That is so cool too.
I've got the Bund. This is a genuine German issued analog digital. So I think it would jive with you, because one of the things that I've come to understand your argument about being able to measure where you are within the hour itself based on the minute hand, which has, as far as your brain interpreting that data, has some uses.
For me, it's not about what time it is, it's how much time do I have left, always.
Yeah, probably more so like within the hour.
Yeah.
And then, I've got my father's Timex, which I'll use occasionally. I wear this when I'm expecting an ass chewing from the battalion commander. Just give me some strength. Then I've got, my dad's Eco Drive. I have another one from my father. This is that company issued watch that I don't have a battery for, and it's cracked and whatnot. But it's NOS. It still has the stickers on it, worth $1 million.
Perfect.
I have this Rula. I don't know how to pronounce that, which is embarrassing because it's a German watch. But this is East German, and it's on East German rain pattern. Now, I don't know if this particular was used by the East German military, but I could imagine some East German climbing into a MiG and using this to time their afterburns and whatnot.
He's probably going to be more of an office.
Then there is this genuine World War II issued German field watch.
That watch is so good, dude. That's so good.
I have this Vario, which we discussed, and then over there is my my DW 5600 that I use for regular.
Wait. Where is your other German that Annie Digi? There you go. No, yes. You switched the strap out on that. You had that rain strap. Okay.
Yeah, I did. I thought because that's technically an East German camouflage pattern. I thought it belonged on the East German watch.
It does. No, I don't disagree with it, but man, I love that watch. I really do like that one a lot.
But what's interesting about this is, these are all very different. But at the end of the day, it would seem that it really doesn't matter what watch you're wearing, as long as you as the individual can use it to tell time. That's what matters.
The functionality makes a difference. It absolutely does.
So as I was gonna say, I'm going off to this amazing place called JRTC in 3 weeks, and it's gonna be trash. But I'm gonna wear this. This is NOS. When it comes back, it will not be NOS.
Perfect.
So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's kind of all my military watches. We discussed military watches with my father as far as what it's like to get one issued, what it will take to get one issued. Now, my father is far more high speed than I am. He's served in some more high speed units than I, but even he probably doesn't have the access to the SF folks. I feel like the SF folks probably get real deal unit level issued watches. And I guess they have the funding for that and they have the need for it. But for regular Joes like us, go to the PX, buy a watch. Pretty much how that works. To wrap this up, do we have any last calls? Now, for the Cold War Patriot, the last calls are generally an off-topic discussion, but it can be really whatever you want. So you got one to lead us off with?
I do. Actually, I want to compliment and say thank you to Joe for what he does as a school teacher, right? I don't think school teachers get to hear that enough. I mean, you guys are shaping the youth that go out into the world, and the teachers are grossly underappreciated, grossly underpaid, and are literally in the trenches every day shaping these young people to be the best they can be. And I got to tell you how much I appreciate that. So thank you.
So speaking, I think for myself and for Mrs. KC, we appreciate that because she is also a school teacher in elementary school. Oh my good God. High school, which is what I do, like they're almost real people. And if I do my job right, they become real people. Elementary school.
Yeah, I could not do the job my wife does.
No, you could not.
I don't have the patience. I'd fly off the handle. I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, can you please?
I love you. I love you dearly. There is no way. There is absolutely no way.
No way. I mean, if I see a child smearing poop on the wall, I'm going to react negatively. Okay?
There's very little. That's why I teach high school, because by that point, the poop should have been like, they should have knocked that out of them. Like, Casey, you got anything? You got a last call?
You know, I actually don't.
You know what? I don't either. The only thing I can really do, and I know that I have a few students who watch this. My high school, the units that I work with, my percussion section has done incredibly well. My color guard just finished their season on Saturday. They did incredibly well. It's one of those things, like I have staff that have worked to train them and have done the work. All I get to do is sort of show up as a proud parent, and very little that I've had to do. I get to reap all the benefit and the reward from it. And I put in no effort whatsoever.
Oh, so you're saying you're an officer?
Basically. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And you know what? Feels good, man. Feels real good.
So when you say color guard, I'm not sure if I quite imagine.
Okay. You're thinking color guard in the military standpoint, which is going to be the unit flag, the state flag, and the American flag. I'm thinking color guard is a bunch of really talented dancer girls who have colorful flags that throw them into the air and catch them.
Okay.
It's a slightly different thing.
I always thought they were like the twirl team or something. I'm not even trying to be funny. Like I thought.
No. You're totally right. It would be the tall flag unit, and my group finished first.
Okay, cool.
And the level of pride I have for them right now is kind of through the roof. They did exceptionally well. They had a very challenging season, and my love for them knows no bounds.
Well, you guys got to think outside the box, because I feel like there's only but so many ways you can twirl a flag. So now you guys are putting in the time, the choreography, and there are
other elements that are involved. You are correct.
Yeah,
and they did exceptionally well, and I'm very proud. I'm very proud. That's all I got.
Yeah. Cool.
So, KC, if they want to reach us, how do they find us?
Oh man, if they want to find the Spring Bar Podcast, I don't know what the email is off the top of my head.
The Spring Bar Podcast @gmail.com.
All right, and coincidentally, the Instagram runs very similar to that, Spring Bar Podcast.
At the Spring Bar Podcast. You can hashtag us for anything that you want. So on a personal level, I am Watch Taylor Youth, all one word, EUPH. KC, how do they find you?
So for me, my Instagram handle is time.hack1636, and my father is @cold_war_patriots. And for the hashtag of next week, can you, if you're going to upload anything, please hashtag us in any sort of military watch photos. It doesn't have to be a watch that you personally use in the military, but let's say it's something you acquired off eBay that has military provenance, or you inherited from a military family member. We'd love to see it.
Absolutely.
Show us your military watches.
Absolutely. So, JT, thank you so much for spending time with us. The information that you've shared, it's invaluable, man. It's absolutely invaluable in your service and the way that you've influenced your family. All of that speaks well to you and everything that you've done. So kudos to you. Kudos to your family. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're more than welcome. So with that being done, we are the Spring Bar Podcast, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much.
Cool.